What is the greatest enemy of your calling? What is going to prevent you from realizing the dreams that God has for you? Well, that's our question today. Hi everyone, this is Paul with TrinityDigitalMedia.com, and I want to ask you that question. What is the biggest enemy of your calling? Now, before I do that, I'd like to encourage you to join the conversation. So head on over to TrinityDigitalMedia.com/contact, and there you can leave a message. You can leave a question, comment, snide remark, what have you. Or I've got all my contact information there as well, so you can drop me a line on email, paul@trinitydigitalmedia.com, or the phone number is 1-877-763-3246. That's 1-877-POD-ECHO if you prefer to leave a voicemail message. Or you might know I know a little bit about Twitter, so I'm over there as well, Paul Allen Cliff, PaulAlanClif. Before we get started, thank you to all those of you who are supporting the show on Patreon. It really helps. So head on over to patreon.com/PaulAllenCliff, and you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. I've got all kinds of bonuses there up until the top bonus, which is if you support me at the highest level that I have listed, then I will give you a copy of each new book as I write it. That's it. So if that's within your means, if you're thinking, man, I'd really love to help out, and you want to give $100 a month, then absolutely. That enables me to write more, so I'm happy to spread what I write to you. So thank you. Okay, so let me ask you this question, because someone prompted me with this question. Actually, not exactly, but they asked why I was giving away my book on Twitter. So, why would I do that? Do you have any ideas? Well, I answered that the biggest enemy to my success, to the success of my calling, is anonymity. Now, that might not be the biggest enemy of the success of your calling. Perhaps you're widely known already, so that's not an enemy to you. But I think that this is an important exercise to figure out what is the biggest enemy towards your success and attack it. So let's first identify what the enemy is. Maybe the enemy is laziness. Maybe the enemy is entitlement. Maybe the enemy is your expectations, or anonymity like mine is, or procrastination. Whatever your enemy is, those are just a few of them. There are certainly others. Identify what the enemy is. That's the very first step. And you need to think of this as a person or an entity that's trying to prevent what you're supposed to be doing. Not because it's necessarily literally an enemy that's doing this. It could just be your own self. It could be the world's systems that they just make it harder than it should be. That's just the way that it is. Sometimes it is a spiritual enemy, but not always. Sometimes it's just the way that things are. So identify that enemy and come up with a plan. Let me give you some examples. If your enemy is laziness, I want you to do just one thing. I don't care what it is, but every day you should do one thing that gets you closer to your goal. And it should get you closer more than just the day takes you away from it. What do I mean by that? So if part of your calling is to write, you need to write enough that soon, I don't want to hear stories about someone that's been writing a book for 10 years. That's not soon. Soon, within the next 6 months, you've finished a rough draft. I don't know how much that is, but for you, you need to develop the habit of overcoming that laziness if that's what your calling is to write. Whatever your calling is, develop a habit, a small habit that you can accomplish with regularity and do it every single day that you're pursuing your dreams. Now, I don't mean that you should necessarily do that 7 days a week, but perhaps for a short stretch, maybe you should. Maybe you shouldn't view it as work. Maybe you should just view it as what you get to do. So that's one thing. If you are someone who feels entitled to this success, perhaps you just need to be grateful for what you have and not feel like you should have more than you already do, because you're probably very blessed. You probably have more than you think you think you have. So list all the things that you should be grateful for. If you have expectations that this should be easy, I want you to flip those expectations, because almost nothing great is done that is easy. If it was easy, almost everyone would do it. Look around, look at your friends, notice how many easy things they accomplish versus how many hard things. Okay? It shouldn't be easy. In fact, I would expect it to be hard. Next, if you are fighting with anonymity like I am, I want you to give away as much as you can. This is why I was giving away this book, which, by the way, if you want, no pressure, but if you want it, head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/gift, and you can get one of these things that I'm giving away. As I'm recording it right now, it's my book on Twitter, which is a full-length, 15,000 word approximately book that you can buy on Amazon. But I'm giving that away because it matters more that people know who I am than that they give me just a few bucks. So I'm giving that away. See how that's a strategy? Just as if procrastination is what you struggle against, what you need to do is every day start your day with the hardest thing, the thing that you do not want to do. Do that first. And see if all of a sudden procrastination isn't so hard, because once you've accomplished the hardest thing, the next hardest thing doesn't seem so hard. So you do that. And then the next thing, well, that doesn't seem too hard, so you do that. Next thing you know, you've done a lot. So think of all the possible things that you need to accomplish and just rattle them off from hardest to least and just build a snowball of accomplishment. So once you have made this plan, it's very important that you don't stop at a plan. A plan without activity is nothing. It's useless. Think of all the great inventions in the world that were never made. Nikola Tesla was convinced that he had figured out wireless electricity and all kinds of great stuff. But people didn't know about them because they didn't leave his head. So they're not useful to us. The world is not different in a substantive way because of this. So, consider that. Next, you need to figure out how you're going to make sure that you do your plan. This is what I suggest. I suggest you get a group. Find a group of like-minded individuals. For me, I've just joined a mastermind group And it really sounds like something that's trying to take over the world. And maybe on some level we are trying to take over the world in our own industries. But there's a comedian in the group, there's a graphic designer in the group, there's a professional success coach in the group, etc. So we're all trying to hold each other accountable so that we actually do the things that we're planning on doing. If you don't have a group, you could absolutely find one. Do a search online for masterminds and see if you can find a mastermind group that you can meet with. You can meet on Google+, you can meet virtually, you can even meet locally, no problem. But find people that are also trying to do what you're doing so that you can help each other. The Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, so one friend builds another. So I think that that's really important. Something else that you can do is you can commit to what you're doing in public. Last night, I announced on all my social media channels that I've signed a contract with Church Mag Publishers to publish my next book. Why did I do that? To make sure that I publish my next book. It's very important that I don't skimp out or anything like that, and I also want to build anticipation. So the publicness of it matters. By the way, if you're watching this after August of 2014, Church Video School is that new book, and it should be coming out soon. If it's after August, it actually should have come out. So be public about it in any way that you can be public about it. My pastor, when he wrote his book in front of all our church, he kept talking about the steps he was taking, the next thing he'd done, the chapter he'd just written, how much more he still had to write, how far into the editing process he was, etc. And that was not just to say, look at me, I'm a great writer, blah, blah, blah. No. Part of that was to say, I need accountability. So if I tell people about stuff, people will ask me how it's going. If people ask me how it's going, then I want to have something good to tell them. And finally, this may or may not be helpful to you, but for some people, rewards are very motivating. My wife has been on a diet and she lost, I think, 25 pounds. And her reward for herself was a particular jacket that she's been looking at. Now, she hasn't found it yet, but that's a reward to her. Believe it or not, some people are not as motivated by rewards. Some are more motivated by punishments. So make a punishment for yourself, and you have to follow through with it. So, is it accountability? Is it rewards? Is it punishments? What is it that will help you stay on your path? That is very important. So try and figure it out. Try and figure out what it is, and try and figure out what you can do as you're going out to change eternity. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com.